You come over to someone's house Tuesday night for a play date and everything's lovely and fun. Maybe mom even knew not to drink that day,
Right.
or mom's going through a good period. Oh, your childhood was lovely. Your mom was so funny and sweet. Remember that time we played Candyland and baked cookies? Just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't in your blind spot.
Hello, everyone. This is Kathy Caprino, and welcome to my podcast, Finding Brave. I've created this show for everyone who longs to create something bold and brave in their life, to rise up, speak up, and stand up for who they are, and to reach their highest and biggest visions. Each week, I'll be speaking with inspiring guests from all walks of business, leadership, entertainment, the creative arts, and the entrepreneurial world. And they'll be sharing their intimate stories of finding brave and offer their best strategies for building your most rewarding, joyful, and meaningful life, business, and career. Hello there, Kathy here. I'm so excited to share with you about a new program I'm launching on October 15th called the Most Powerful You Group Coaching Program. So over the years, many graduates of my courses and readers of my books and articles and other folks have told me this: I wish there were a way to help keep my momentum going throughout the year, with guidance, community, and accountability all year long. So many people have a growth spurt at one time or another, but then their progress or momentum fades. This program is the answer to that wish. For 12 months, this program offers monthly 60-minute live group coaching calls with me and a small global group to help you identify and move through the best steps to take to achieve your most compelling and exciting personal and career growth goals. And this type of support can truly change everything for you. There are other great features and bonuses, including with upfront payment, free access to my Kathy Caprino AI tool, and 2 private one-on-one coaching calls with me, and a lot more. Check it out at kathycaprino.com/MPY group coaching. And that link is down below in the show notes. And if you feel ready for ongoing motivating support and an accountability structure that will move you forward, I would love to work with you starting October 15th. Hope to see you then. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Finding Brave. This is, I believe, mid-September that you're seeing this. I hope it's been off to a wonderful start, your September. And today we have an amazing guest with us who is at this point right in the middle of her amazing book launch. So she's tired, but she's ready to go to talk to us about something that is, I think, near and dear to most of our hearts and absolutely essential. We're talking about You Are Not Your Trauma, how you can heal your life experience. Wow. Let's dive in, Robyn. Thank you again for being here and taking the time. I know this is like the 100th podcast you've done, so thank you. I'm so excited to have you.
Well, each one is so exciting because it feels like we're getting to share the message of the book with like the next group of people who really need to hear it.
Yeah, you're right. You're so right. That's how we look at it. And as everyone who listens to the show knows, I was a corporate person, then a marriage and family therapist, and now a career and leadership coach and speaker. And I am really going to ask you the questions I wish I understood better. So that's what we're going to get here. But let me tell you about Robyn. It's impressive as all get out. Dr. Robyn Koslowitz, did I get it right? I hope so.
Got it right.
Yay! Is a trauma expert and a child psychologist and the author of the newly released book, Post-Traumatic Parenting. Break the cycle and become the parent you always wanted to be. I have kids 27 and 30. Wish I'd read your book. They're doing great and, life is good, but we all need your book, I think. She treats children, adolescents, and families at the Center for Psychological Growth of New Jersey and hosts the Post-Traumatic Parenting YouTube channel and podcast, which of course we'll link to below and we all should check out. So there's so much to talk about in 30 minutes, but what struck me in terms of what you sent over was this. What if the parenting behaviors you dislike most in yourself, like yelling, dissociating, or giving in when you meant to hold firm, aren't really you? What if they're trauma responses driven by patterns your brain learned to survive? And what could we do to change that? So obviously this is probably why you wrote this book, but can you talk about why this book, why now, probably it's emerging from all that you're seeing in your practice. Can you start there with us, Robyn?
I feel like we're at a period right now where parents are more self-aware of their parenting than they ever were before.
Mm.
And there's a lot of awfulizing on social media of like, if you yell at your kids, you destroyed attachment forever. If you don't co-sleep, if you don't baby wear, if you,
Oh, no.
froze them out when you wanted to have a conversation with them, but then you just sort of panicked and said nothing. You said yes when you meant to say no. You said no when you meant to say yes. All of those things. We feel a lot of self-blame and judgment about them. Like,
And shame.
and shame. Like, how did I get so enraged at a toddler? He's only 3, right? Like, how could I get so mad at a teenager? Or how could I sound like my mom and say those words that I swore I'd never say, right? And we really sit there and we judge ourselves. And a lot of times it's not you. A lot of times it's your trauma. Because where did you learn to go there, right? Where did you learn that when you feel threatened or disrespected, you need to lash out? Where did you learn that when you feel a certain level of stress, you just need to check out and not even be there and space out and dissociate and not be part of the conversation? Where did you learn that you always have to keep people happy, so you have to people please at all times, right? You didn't learn that because you thought that was a good thing, like a reasoned choice. Chances are, if we sort of question you and we look at your past, chances are it's a trauma response. You learned that somewhere. So it's really not you. It's really your trauma. You didn't yell at your kid because you're a bad mom and you're a mean person and you're just inherently evil, which is how some influencers on TikTok or Instagram might make you feel. You yelled at your kid because somewhere something taught you to yell. So what was that something and somewhere?
Wow. In the work I do, everything you're saying is true for every aspect of our lives, isn't it?
Yeah.
How we deal with our bosses, how we deal with challenge, how we deal with our partners, how we think about ourselves. I wrote a book, The Most Powerful You, and it's about the 7 damaging power and confidence gaps. And one is allowing the past to continue to shape and define you. So
Yeah.
you're speaking my language, absolutely. One thing I want to ask you, because you brought it up, I mean, social media and what we're seeing and doom scrolling on Instagram. I mean, I'm guilty of it myself. How do you think it's making it even worse? You touched on it, but can we help people understand why listening to this kind of advice is dangerous at best, pretty catastrophic at worst? Can you just talk about that for 1 minute?
Yeah, I feel like the way algorithms on social media work,
Mm,
the way people have to communicate on social media is you have to grab attention very quickly.
mm.
Speaking in very harsh and stark terms makes sense because algorithms are hungry little monsters, right? And you want to feed them, particularly if that's your, livelihood. So you're an influencer on Instagram, TikTok, wherever, and you're talking about parenting. If you're like, well, perhaps maybe sometimes when you do this, it could potentially be detrimental. Nobody's listening to that, right?
Nobody
That's not
cares.
a dopamine move,
Boring.
right? In some cases, occasionally, right? That's boring. If you're like, if you don't co-sleep with your kids, you have harmed attachment forever. That is going to go viral. Whether people love it or hate it, that's going to go viral,
Right,
right?
right.
So the algorithm's needs and the consumer's needs are two very different things, right? So you're a mom, you're scrolling TikTok because you feel bad because you just yelled at your kid. And maybe right before that, you Googled reasons parents yell at their kids, right? So the TikTok algorithm now knows to send you some content about that. So you're getting the content that is said in the harshest, starkest terms. So what we're having right now is we have a generation of parents who are more self-aware about parenting and its implications than ever before, and that's great. Right? There's so much information about attachment theory, about parenting practices, right? And some of that is wonderful. I have learned some terrific life hacks from social media, some great ideas, great restaurants to try, great recipes to try, right? I've learned great things sometimes. But the other side of it, where the algorithm is feeding you content that's not necessarily for your benefit, but is for your attention,
Thanks.
is going to make you feel worse and worse. And you know who's most susceptible? Post-traumatic parents, because they are people who already doubt themselves, who already feel damaged by their damage, who are already trying to do it well, despite maybe not having had good models or despite being so psychologically depleted that they don't have a lot left in the tank. So they're particularly going to fall prey to that, right? They're particularly going to feel bad about it when they get that content served up to them.
Oh, wow, Robin, holy cow. So, I have a list of questions I'm dying to ask you, but I'm going with what you're saying that's triggering me in a good way. Um, I'm guessing that in your practice, did it just evolve that you're hearing this over and over? Like for me, the seven damaging power gaps evolved into a book because this is what I'm talking about over and over and over and
Mhm.
over and over. So is that how it emerged that you thought we've got to write this book now? And I'd love to know how you know when someone comes into your office or you're online with them for the first time. How do you know in a minute we're talking post-traumatic
Yeah. So
response?
two very distinct questions. So I'll go through one and then
Thank
the
you.
other. Um, so the book is very much evolved out of my journey and my story. So, 27-ish, 26 years ago, I was pregnant. I had undiagnosed PTSD. I knew that my panic attacks and flashbacks were so painful for me. I had this burning question, what are they doing to the baby inside of me? Because if it's this hard for me to be in my body, what's it like to literally be inside my body, right?
Wow.
And I was a college student and then a grad student, and I would go to the stacks at the library. This was pre-Google, right? And I would go to the stacks at the library and I would search for research on PTSD and pregnancy and then PTSD and parenting, and there was literally nothing.
And you
No
were
one had
not,
done
you were
that
you studying
research.
psychology then?
I majored in psychology undergrad, and then I
Yeah.
was a psychology grad student,
Wow.
getting my PhD. And like I went straight through, like from BA straight through PhD. So there was just no research. Remember, prior to 9/11, no one talked about trauma. Trauma was just, it was like a fringe diagnosis that no one really talked about.
Or if they did, didn't they talk about it? I have to say this to people. You can have trauma if a teacher makes fun of you in front of the class. That can be trauma, but we're
Yeah.
we're trained to think it's from war or if you see
Yeah.
someone blow up in front of you. Therapists use the word trauma in the way it's really
Yeah.
accurate, but the rest of the world thinks it's got to be the most catastrophic thing. Would you
Yeah.
agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, some of that comes from the famous Kaiser Permanente ACES study, Advanced Childhood Experiences, where adverse childhood experiences, where they really sort of like t went through the big ones,
Right.
right, that people know about. But the truth is, the way I define trauma is any experience that's too big for your brain to metabolize,
Ooh.
that shook your sense of self or that shook your sense of safety in the world, and that you had to cope with alone, right? If an experience has those three things, it doesn't matter if it's on that ACES list or it doesn't, it made you
Will you
traumatized.
say those three things again for us?
So it's too big for your brain to metabolize. Like your brain's like, just what just happened to me? Like this is just huge, right? It shook your sense of self or safety in the world,
Wow.
right? And you
Wow.
had to cope with it on some level alone.
Wow.
When you have those three things, you're traumatized. So
I don't
yeah,
think I've
getting made
ever
fun
heard
of.
that definition. Is it
But if
your,
you if you if you're a clinician and you're working with people, that is the definition. And if you really look at the research, that is the definition of trauma. Because I will tell you that I really hate the whole distinction that we make between like big T and little T trauma. Let's say people talk about that. There's no such thing as little T trauma.
right?
It's not what happens, it's who it
Excuse me.
happens to and how it lands, right?
And it's deeply personal and deeply intimate,
Yeah.
and we don't have to justify why we're feeling a trauma
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, and don't gaslight yourself and don't sit there. I call that the game of trauma poker where it's like, all I had was this. That person is raising the stakes because she had that and he had that.
Wow.
It doesn't matter, right? There's no stakes. There's no way of raising stakes. Sometimes you don't know what all the traumas are in another person's life, and sometimes what did more damage is something that would sound relatively minor. And sometimes it's something that's just the trauma of absence. I'm working with somebody who was raised by a functional alcoholic, and not knowing which version of her mom, the bitter, mean, angry one, or the funny, sweet one, she would come home to,
Oh
was
gosh.
profoundly unsettling and traumatic. She also had another like big and dramatic traumatic experience in her life, and people, oh, she has said to me, people say that the big one is the one, that, oh wow, that's terrible, I'm purposely being vague about what the big one was, but the truth is, I don't know how to put this, but being raised by my mom was a traumatic experience.
She said that.
Yeah. And
Very
there's no
self-aware.
words. Yeah, it took her a long time, but like there's no words to explain it, right? Because it's the trauma of absence. You come home from school, mom's on a 3-day hangover, and you can't make noise in the house. Mom's sweet. Mom's horribly sarcastic and says extremely mean, cruel things that no child should hear, right? It's not dramatic, but it's pretty traumatic.
And I think your another corollary is people may say, but your mom seems so nice, but every time I went over there, it was fine. What
Yeah,
you're saying about my life is not relevant.
yeah,
You're not there when it's all
right.
happening, right? Do you see this in your practice too?
Yeah, do you know how people talk about blind spots in cars, where like if you're backing up and there's a blind spot, your brain will actually fill in that gap, and your brain will say, "Oh, nobody's there." It's a optical illusion that your brain creates for you. You come over to someone's house Tuesday night for a play date, and everything's lovely and fun and fun. Maybe mom even knew not to drink that day,
Right.
or mom's going through a good period. Oh, your childhood was lovely. Your mom was so funny and sweet. Remember that time we played Candyland and baked cookies? Just because you didn't see it doesn't mean it wasn't in your blind spot.
It is so important and so validating. All right, now where do we begin? You have 5 practices for parents. Is that what you call them? Post-traumatic parenting. Oh, subtypes.
Right, five
Yes.
types, yeah.
Types.
So, yeah, basically, just to like explain the other side of trauma, because you were talking before about like the definitions of trauma.
Yeah.
I believe that when we're traumatized, our brains, and this is a metaphor that I'm using, but it's very much backed up by how the research works. Our brains create what I call a trauma app. And what the trauma app does is the you know the trauma that we experience shook our sense of self and safety. So the trauma app has to restore our illusion of self and safety. So the trauma app comes up with programming for us, and it tells us like if X happens, do Y, right? And if people are angry around me, I need to people please. If people are angry at me, I need to yell and lash out. If people are angry at me, I need to vote with my feet and get out of there, right? Any of those. Your trauma app tells you what to do. And it works because it restores your illusion of safety or your sense of self in the world. Oh, I'm so nice, right? I'm so kind. I'm a
Oh
people pleaser. Oh, yeah, I'm
my
so
God.
tough. No one disrespects me, right? So it restores your sense of self or your sense of safety in the world. And it works great because it might even work in the workplace. It might even work in a marriage. It's not going to work for your kids, right? Because
Wow.
your kids are not okay with you people pleasing your boss and then coming home late because they're like, "Mom, you were supposed to be home with us."
Oh.
Right? Your kids are not okay with you lashing out over the slightest provocation. They're going to hold you to account and say, "Why do you yell at me all the time?" Right?
So, oh my gosh, wait, I have so many questions. Let me start with this. That app, you're using it like a contemporary term
Yeah.
application, right?
Yeah.
I have a question about this. I had some trauma too. Who didn't? I don't mean
Right.
to belittle it, but yes, I did growing up. The app that we have that was formed maybe when we were 3, 4, 8, 10, whatever.
Right.
Did we form that through trial and error, or did we figure out by trying, yeah, trial and error that okay,
Yeah.
this works when mom is like this?
Yeah.
We figured it out through trying different things, and what made us feel safer and more in control is what became the
Yeah.
operating app. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And we rehearsed the response. So the more we rehearsed it, the more we did it. Our brains are really efficient. I guess a not nice way of saying that is lazy, right? So the minute your brain comes up with a strategy that works, it's not going to come up with another strategy.
Yeah.
People pleasing works with mom. It might work in school too. Hey, it does. It works with my teacher. She really likes me because I'm the person who always volunteers to stay after and clean the blackboard. And then I get some privileges because of that. Hey, my friends are, letting me into their social group because I'm the nice one. This is working. Why would I change it?
I see. Now, can I amplify or understand a little more? You said that these, and I see this every day with myself, with clients, it works typically. That's why we do it. And we might not even be aware that we're doing it.
Right.
You're people pleasing, you know how to make people feel great, but sometimes there might be an inkling. I don't even want to stand here and listen to this person and make them feel great, but I'm standing here listening and doing that.
Right.
That's a trauma app, I'm sure. But oh, there was a question. What was it? Oh, hang on. It was important to me. I'm not going to get it. Darn it, that rarely happens. Well, let's keep going. How do you, when someone comes to your office, can you size up what the app is in about a half a second?
Not in a half a second, but if you ask a lot of questions about, so you meant to do X, but Y happened. So why? Why not? I was going to tell my boss, no, I cannot stay late. She cannot come to me at 4:30 and say, "Oh, we have a rush job. You need to stay till 6." I promised my kids I'd be home on time. And my whole body was saying no, and my mouth said yes.
And
Hmm.
do people in your experience typically know why?
Well, I just can't say no to her. Well, why not? And that's where I call it like my like, like it's like my asking why question. Well, why not? Why can't you say no to her? Well, then she'll be mad at me. Okay, and if she's mad at you, what then? Right? And we just keep going down until we get back to, well, I can't handle it when people are mad at me. Why not? Right? And eventually we get
Wow.
to the core of it. Or the same thing with yelling. I was so stressed out. I was holding on to so much stress. I just had to yell at my kid because like she can't talk to me that way. Why? Why not? Why can't you hold on to that stress and just feel that feeling? Because that's terrible. Why? Why is that terrible? Why is it terrible to feel stressed but not do something about it? Because, and then eventually we get to when I
Because
was
I
a
was hurt.
kid, because I was hurt. Right.
You know what's fascinating to me? Um, in marriage and family therapy, in my program, we were taught don't use the word why because it makes people defensive. It makes them have to justify. The way you do it, it's validating.
Yeah.
I've truly never heard it if you were to ask me, why can't you? It's curious. It's
Yeah.
curiosity. It
Yeah.
isn't, why the heck can't you?
Right.
Um,
Right.
and then when the person says, well, because they'll be mad. And when you say, well, why is that
A
upsetting
problem.
to you?
Right.
Why is
Yeah.
that a problem? It doesn't feel like you're putting people on defensive. It's that you're really curious
Yeah.
as to their operating system.
Yeah. And I might say something like, help me understand, like if I'm
Right.
actually in therapy.
I
But
see.
I think there's also like the musicality of your voice and the way it's like,
Yeah,
clearly, I'm not trying to put you on the defensive. I'm so curious. Like, help me understand this.
that's right.
You really wanted to say no to your boss, right? Like, you're telling me every fiber of your being was saying no, and the word yes came out of your mouth. That had to have been a scary experience for you.
Oh, I could talk to you for hours. I remembered what the question was, and then I have another one. Um, you said you can get away with it in other arenas, but with your children, you can't. Can you
Yeah.
talk about that a little more?
Yeah. In the book, I talk about an incident that happened to me that shook me to my core, and I probably tear up every time I talk about it. When I was a kid and I was traumatized, and I had a pretty dramatic trauma story that I talk about in the book. We don't have time for all the trigger warnings. So, but I had PTSD, and one of the things I did to handle my PTSD was I dissociated. I thought when I was a teenager and I discovered dissociation, I thought it was a superpower because I could be feeling very stressed and suddenly I'd be icy calm and I'd be fine and I wouldn't feel any emotions at all. And it was great. So, and it got me through so far. It got me through being a grad student in a really prestigious program, doing research while being a young mom. I was the only parent in my cohort. Like everybody else were single people and I had like, or maybe they were in relationships, but they didn't have children to care for. And I'm like running home to take care of my small children, running back to grad school, right? It was a stressful
Oh
experience.
my
But I would just shut off my emotions and I would be fine. And I thought it was great. And my friends made space for it, right? Like they knew that sometimes I'm like unavailable. Like if I'm reading something really important to me, like don't try to get my attention, right? If I'm working on a research project, don't invite me out. I won't be fun because my whole brain will be on my
Yeah,
research. Like don't just
that's
don't. My husband made space for it. Like he understood that like sometimes I'm just not fully present and that's okay with him. Like he understood and he knew how to say to me like, okay, like sort of like when can we talk about this? Like sort of like right
wow.
and that worked. It worked at work. It worked great for my bosses, right? It worked when I was doing research and I was coding data. I could focus for hours. One day, my son was 10 years old and he looked at me and he said, Mommy, sometimes when you're talking to me, he said, where do you go when you go away behind your eyes? Sometimes when you're talking to me, it's like you're not really there and I don't like it. And he burst out crying.
Oh my gosh.
And I remember just this panic feeling of like, oh no, I knew exactly what he was talking about. And I was like, oh no, this is harming him. But it was as if he said to me, like, Mommy, you're only 5 feet tall. And in order to be a good mother to me, you need to be 6 feet tall because then you could reach the high cabinets in our house. And like,
That's how you took
that's how
it,
I
you
took
mean?
it. Like, what do you mean? You want me to feel my feelings? Because if I feel my feelings, I might yell at you and I don't want to ever yell at you. Like that's what went through my head. I panicked. Like, what am I supposed to do?
Wow.
So, of course, in the moment, I went numb because that's what I do under stress. But that's what made me say, you know what? I did a lot of therapy for my PTSD, but I'm not better yet. And I had to learn to undo this dissociation, which to me had always been my superpower. To this day, I do have, that's another thing I want to say about trauma. I do have the good parts of the trauma app that I can toggle on and select on. One of those is I can focus on work in tiny pockets of time with a high level of focus. Like when I would travel from NYU back to New Jersey for my, as I was doing my doctorate, I used to literally write research papers and my dissertation on a laptop, on the bus. Some drunk guy could be like drooling on my shoulder. I was in a research lab. Like I was sitting and typing as though, I mean, the bus could have caught on fire. I wouldn't have noticed, right? Which
Do
was
you
great.
call that dissociation?
Total dissociation. I have no idea like where, like a lot of times the driver had to like walk over to me like we're at the station, like because I didn't even notice us
Okay.
passing, us moving. I was like completely, which isn't great maybe
No.
safety wise, but it worked well for, and to this day I can do that, right? Like when I need to write and I don't have that much time and I'm on a deadline and I have like an hour between patients, I can really focus. I can like set a timer and be like, okay, for a half hour now, my brain is only on this. And I can do that. And it's a superpower. So a lot of times our trauma applications, right? The trauma
Hmm.
app, what it does can serve us well as long as we do it mindfully when we want to.
Okay, that is the thing I really wanted to point out because some people could listen to that and say, that sounds amazing. What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that, I think, you tell me, is if you lose yourself and are not aware of it and are not in control of it. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah, if my son is telling me something super painful, if my daughter comes home and says like, "Mom, I don't know what to do. I have this friend and she kind of likes me and she kind of doesn't like me and I'm so confused by her and it kind of feels like she's bullying me, but she's really my friend." And I start feeling stressed because it sounds like my daughter's being bullied. I want to stay present in that conversation. I don't want to dissociate. I don't want to have my brain suddenly be on my research or suddenly be on my shopping list and like what groceries I need to get or what I need to cook. I want my brain fully present there to hear her out and to be able to ask her questions and to be able to like fully resonate with like the conversation we're having, right? I can't parent her if if
Right.
if I'm dissociated because that's like being parented by a robot, not by a human, right?
It's
She's
almost like that dissociation hacks your ability to
yeah,
empathize, to connect outward.
yeah,
Is that right?
yeah,
Can you explain to people the dissociation I often heard about in therapy was like I had one acquaintance who grew up in a cult and she was terribly abused by family members. And she would have to leave her body and her mind to get
yeah,
through it. Isn't that the typical way we think about in the beginning parts of our training, that it's leaving our presence so that we can endure the unendurable? Is that what
yeah.
often it
Yeah,
is?
very often it's like that. When my son asked where I go when I go away behind my eyes,
Yeah.
I went somewhere, right? I wasn't there. He is right. The part of me, my psyche was not there. I was a very good technician of bedtime and story time and bath time, and it's
Uh-huh.
overwhelming. You have a lot of kids. You have I had quite a few kids at that point, and I was a grad student and I was working, and I had to like get through the evening, and I didn't want to yell. I just had this thing in my head that like a good mom doesn't yell. But it was my only go-to response. And for a little while I was learning to undo it, I was a more yelly mother, but I was a more present mother until
Mm.
I learned other ways,
Wow,
even just to
Robyn.
acknowledge and say, guys, I'm getting really overwhelmed right now. I need everybody to cut down the noise level for a minute, ask me your questions one at a time. Right? I had to
Wow.
learn how to do that. Right? Not just like dissociate and not feel stressed and like robotically get through the evening.
Oh my gosh, you've overcome so much. So I'm aware of our time. Let me keep you for 5 more minutes if that's okay.
Sure.
Where do we begin? For people listening to this, first of all, they go to your book, they watch your podcast, they listen to your podcast, but what can we give them? Where do they start when they say, this is me. I have a post-traumatic response here.
So the first thing I want everybody to know is you're not damaged by your damage. You absolutely can rewire your trauma response. And there's actually research that came out after I submitted the final manuscript about how our brains are uniquely neuroplastic, particularly for women when we become moms and as we're parenting young children. If you think about what we try to do in trauma therapy, we try to rewire neural connections, right? That's what we're doing. When somebody's like, they think about the trauma they went through and they're like, I am such a loser. I am such an idiot. I can't be trusted with anything, right? Let's say, I don't know, I got into the car with my drunk boss and what happened afterwards predictably happened. I'm such an idiot. What kind of an idiot gets into that car, right? I want to rewire that to you were a very naive, like 19-year-old in your first job. You said
You did the
yes.
best you
You
could.
did the best you could, right? You said yes when there were some indicators to say no, perhaps under the influence of alcohol that you shouldn't have even been drinking because someone gave it to you, right? You made a mistake. And I want to rewire that to from I am such a loser to I made a mistake, but I can learn from it or something like that, right? Very hard to rewire our brains. It's why trauma therapy takes such a long time. But when your brain is neuroplastic, it's open to being rewired. That's the best time to rewire your brain. Parenting is that moment. Our brains are very plastic. When people joke about mom brain and things like that, that's your brain reorganizing itself.
Is that hormonal? Is that physical?
Partially hormonal, partially physical, but there's a lot of research that shows if you put like new mothers into fMRI machines and things like that, their brains are reorganizing. So it's a great time to rewire your brain. Not only is your damage not going to damage your kids, in raising your kids, you can heal your damage because your brain is uniquely set up to do that. It's sort of like, you know how little kids can learn language very easily, but there's
Yes.
a language learning critical period. But then when you're an adult, it's much harder. Parenting can be a critical period
I
to
had no
rewire your
idea of
trauma.
this.
Yeah.
And it is physiological and biological and
Yeah.
neurological.
Yeah.
That's something about the birthing process and being
Yeah.
a caregiver of an infant or a child changes our.
Yeah. Maybe it's I mean, there are so many, explanations for this, right? Like maybe it's like that imperative to keep the little human alive. So therefore our brain is uniquely open to learning new things because it's like, oh, this
It's
is a
life
unique
or
skill
death.
set. Yeah. Because like, I mean, toddlers, just like for everyone to know, are like basically self-destructive at all moments. Like they're always just running headlong into danger. You have to learn a lot of new skills when you become a parent.
You are so
Your
right.
brain wants you to learn new skills. This is a great time to learn to rewire your trauma.
So fascinating. All right. So again, aware of our time, give us three things parents can do when they're hearing this and saying, well, I need it. I need this now. What do I do? Where do I start? Can you do
So,
that?
so the first thing you need to know is, you know, becoming more self-aware and undoing that shame response of saying like, I'm the worst parent in the world. The most I could do is earn a lot of money so I can pay for my kids' therapy, like those kind of responses. You are the parent that your child's psyche wants and that your child's psyche needs, and you can make yourself into that parent, right? And you
That's
you
beautiful.
absolutely can. Like it is within your capacity. I firmly believe that. The second thing is I really believe in the power of journaling, looking like restating and reclaiming stories and being able to like rewrite that narrative. Like, so if we have the perspective of like, I yelled at my kid, I'm the worst mother in the world. Well, how would your best friend write that story?
Mhm.
Right? How would someone who loved you write that story? What would they say? Right? So being able to bring in that other perspective of being
Yeah.
able to understand it. Right. And I think the last thing is that parenting in particular is a skill and skills can be learned. There's no skill that can't be learned. So just learn the skill, right? There is a skill out there. There are ways to learn it. Like the whole third part of the book is all the parenting skills. If you boil down all the noise,
Wow.
the parenting skills you actually need, right? Focus on those.
Wow.
You'll be okay, right?
And we talked earlier that these are life skills as well. So I'm guessing that even if parenting isn't the key issue, diving into these strategies and these practices, it's going to help you in
Yeah.
every way. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm having the oddest experience. I have a whole really dedicated cohort of post-traumatic parents who are not raising real-world children. They are raising their inner children. They are trying to cope. And a lot of them are extremely successful executives, people very high in their fields, like, people who have degrees, like medical degrees or like lawyers. And I didn't expect the book. The first person who actually told me, she's like, okay, I've been following you for a long time. I always participate in your lives. I have a secret to confess. I was like, oh gosh, what is she going to tell me? I don't actually have kids.
And she was drawn to it because she knew I'm the kid.
Yeah. She was exactly that. And, somebody, a very high level professional. And she just, and she's actually gone to the point where she's like,
Wow.
there may be a day in my life where, I used to like not date anyone who wanted kids because I would never want, I just thought like I was so badly abused. I'll for sure do that to my child. I don't want to do that. And she's gone to the point where, maybe as I raise my inner child, maybe one day I do want a child.
I'm crying. Look at the work that you're doing. And I'm wondering if people will come to you and they won't admit that they don't have children because they don't want to admit they're doing the work for themselves. Is that what happens? And then when they feel safe enough, they do tell
Right.
you?
Yeah, which is why I'm thinking of like writing another book about the trauma app for everybody. Because I think once you realize, I've had this with so many people. I just recently was at a speaking at an event, and there was a woman, a founder of a nonprofit, and she's not a public speaker, and she usually has like her clinical director speak, her director of operations speak. She doesn't speak, and for some reason, she was put in the position where she had to speak. And we just had that conversation where she's like, I'm so anxious, I can't do this. And I said, well, what about it makes you anxious? She's like, well, what if I mess up? And we did that same thing. Well, what if you do mess up?
Hmm.
And I just saw her and we just had that little conversation about, I was like, wow, there's an app in your brain that tells you that making a mistake would be intolerable. What if that app was created when you were really young and you didn't know much about the world? And she's like, "Oh." I'm like, "So you make a mistake. You are clearly a successful person. You founded this nonprofit. You've done this wonderful work. So you make a mistake. You might." And
Oh,
she just went on
Robyn.
stage and I gave her a few tips about like just shoulders up, back and down, and how do you talk to people and how do you speak from your stomach a little bit, just like, the
Yeah.
basic tips. She went on stage and she crushed it. Like her talk was so great. And it wasn't about parenting. It was just the trauma app in her brain that told her, don't mess up. Mess up.
What a gift that you happen to be sitting there to be able to help her with that.
It was
Because
just like, yeah, we were
if
just waiting backstage.
because if it didn't go well, I mean, we know that's okay. We're speakers,
Yeah.
but she would have internalized that. See, I can never speak live again. Oh my, Robyn,
Yeah.
it's so good. I could keep you for another 2 hours. I know you have another podcast to do. Where do we soak you up? And of course, we'll share those links in the show notes. Where do people go to dive into this to heal either their inner child or to be the parent and the person they want to be in the world? Where do they?
So I love how you're putting that. So obviously the book Post-Traumatic Parenting is available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, all the places that you get books. You can certainly find the Post-Traumatic Parenting YouTube channel and podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. And then we also have on Instagram a very active, engaged following of like post-traumatic parents. You can find that at Dr. Koslowitz Psychology, and that's really where the post-traumatic parenting community hangs out. That's where people can DM me. They can ask their questions. We have a subscription where I literally make it 99 cents a month because I don't want cost to ever be a barrier. And that's the lowest amount Instagram will let you charge. Um,
For what? For what is it?
and then on Sundays, people just like send me their parenting questions or their trauma questions or their therapy questions or their life questions. And then I respond throughout the week, and only the subscribers get to see those
I
videos,
see.
and so it's really post-traumatic parenting is really getting out there. Just I feel like one post-traumatic parent at a time. I just never want another parent to feel as alone as I felt when I thought my damage is going to damage my kids.
Robyn, all I can tell you is there are people I talk to, a lot of them on this podcast, they're called to do something, and it's usually from their own wound or their own what they need to do, what they feel they need to do. Like for me, I said if I could help one woman bypass the pain I experienced in corporate life, it's a good day. It usually expands into something more, but it's really what the world needs you to do. And to me, the work you're doing is what the world needs you to do. I'm so grateful for you. And it's so inspiring. How far you've come and what you've overcome. And now that, I call it turn our mess into a message,
I
to
love
be
that.
helping so many people. Thank you for joining us here. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed our
Oh,
conversation.
I loved it so much. I learned so much. I'm crying. People, at the risk of being a broken record, episode, whatever we're on now, 300 and blip, really, if you don't have a question about this or a curiosity, I don't think we're doing our jobs because this is very nuanced, deep content. So please ask a question when you see this, wherever you see this on social media, on the Finding Brave website, or reach out to either of us. And Robyn, I know you're crushingly busy, but your Instagram channel looks like the way to go here, where people
Yeah.
can ask for 99 cents. It's brilliant. Got to
Yeah.
check that out. Please don't let this just land and do nothing about it, because I think this truly can speak to 80% of the population, especially those who want to not blow our time as a parent. We don't want to reach my age and look back and say I blew it. That's unbearable. So thank you again. Thank you. And people, I hope you found this incredibly helpful, and I am wishing you a wonderful Finding Brave 2 weeks, and we will see you next time. Thank you again, Robyn.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for joining us today. And please don't forget to check out findingbrave.org for more programs, resources, and tips. And tune in next time for your weekly dose of Finding Brave.